Everybody rejoice because it's Friday. Welcome inside to the League Unlocked Studios. My name is Eric, all alone with no Mark for this Friday. So you're going to have to get used to my voice today, which is a tragedy for everyone who has to listen. And week 8 of the LCS is around the corner. You got what would usually be an extremely juicy and hype matchup in TSM versus CLG on day one, but that's not really been the case in 2018 as both of those teams have been struggling. But the question is, why? Obviously, CLG is riding a disgusting 6-game losing streak, which is a little bit odd because if you look at the numbers, their early game is actually among some of the best in the entire league, which is shocking, to say the least. And, across the board, you got goal difference at 15, which is higher, or the highest that we've seen in the league so far, which is surprising, considering, again, they have a 6-game losing streak. Even that kill-death ratio over 1 for a team that has 9 losses is a little bit surprising. And, of course, the first blood rate, first among everyone in the league again. Remember, Reignover had that 9-game or 8-game first blood streak that he almost tied his record with Immortals. But it's not relating to wins for CLG. It was early on, and the first couple of weeks when they jumped out to 5-3, we were saying Stixxay and Biofrost, maybe the best bot lane in NA, and they were looking like a legit threat to be the top dogs in North America. But since that, it has not been the case. So why can't they translate these early leads into victories in a lot of these games? And really, it just comes down to their miscommunication, or in these mid to late game team fights, which is where it tends to be the top teams thrive across all the regions. Liquid, Griffin, over in the LCK, obviously RNG in China, they thrive in those late game team fights. But CLG just don't seem to be on the same page in a lot of these matchups. And also, their vision control, just not great. Biofrost tends to get a little too eager when it comes to team fightings here. As you can see, Stixxay tossing him in. Don't know what the communication is like here, but they're just not on the same page in a lot of these fights. Some guys are going in, some are going out, and a lot of that probably has to do with the likes of Aframu leaving the team and having a clear voice on the team that everyone is looking to when things get completely chaotic and hectic. And it seems like they're still figuring that out. He thought Biofrost has stepped up a bit in the shot calling role. Obviously, Darshan was very vocal even in previous iterations of CLG, but also just around different objectives. They kind of give up a lot of neutrals just for free because they either don't have the vision there or they're backing at bad times. So just a lot of the little things build up in a game for the likes of CLG. They get behind on vision control and then they're forced to face check into some things. And once you're losing fights around these key timers, either the Rift Herald Baron or any kind of dragon, it's painful, and you're going to be losing more than just a couple of kills, and that's how these games can completely turn around. You look at just that Echo Fox game that CLG played recently. They were winning pretty handily, against 100 Thieves. They had such a big early game advantage. They lose one fight in the mid game, in the mid lane, and then that results in a Baron, and 100 Thieves pretty much close it out from there. So it's just their decision making and being on the same page, and of course, vision control, and so many of these little things that CLG is doing, because we've seen time and time again that they can get an early lead and they look to be in the driver's seat to take home a victory, and doesn't tend to be the case. And that's why they're sitting at 5-9, which is only 1 game worse than what's supposed to be the best rivalry in North America, TSM and CLG. TSM is only at 6-8, not a whole lot better. This is the 51st time these guys are playing, by the way, 33-17 in the favor of TSM. But TSM, their struggles have been much highlighted and talked about. Obviously, the main thing is these guys are way too passive. That's the easy thing for everyone to look at, and the numbers do say the same. 9th in kills, they rarely get first turret and first dragon as well. So what are they doing in the early game? When this roster was put together, it was almost supposed to be, it doesn't even matter who your jungler is because they're going to have 3 winning lanes the majority of games, but that has not been the case whatsoever. Bjergsen hasn't really gotten any huge leads in the mid lane. He roams a lot less than most of the other mid laners. Sven and Miffy, not quite looking like the best in the West when it comes to that bot lane during the laning phase. Now, of course, you can say a lot of that is due to the crazy meta where you had these wizard bottom lanes going on, but now it's slowly starting to morph back into the traditional marksman down there. So we'll see if they can be a little bit more dominant in that laning phase. But Mithy doesn't really pick champions they're going to take over that laning phase. And Haunter, at the start of the split, remember, TSM was 4-2 at one point. They looked like a legit team. Again, you thought this was going to be the split that they come back and dominate. So yes, being passive and indecisive is a huge and probably the main issue for TSM. That's why they keep losing all these games in the base races. But TSM themselves, I think, know what their biggest issues are. If you've seen any of the TSM Legends episodes, the most recent one, Mithy had a huge speech basically saying there's too many voices going on, we're too indecisive. A lot of people, it's the old, everyone's giving a whole bunch of information, but nobody's deciding what to do with that information. It sounds like going forward, it's going to be Mithy that's going to be the clear voice on this TSM squad, and he's not afraid to make the call, and as long as everyone follows it, you're all gravy. Sometimes, like this one, the call is incorrect because you lose the game on a backdoor, and if you listen to the comms on that call, it was Mithy kind of saying, let's keep pushing, stay mid, and only a couple of guys, Sven, said, oh, we should probably back. We should probably back or we're going to lose the game. And then you have the exact same outcome as that FlyQuest one with Sven teleporting in, flashing in, trying to save the game, can't do it, and they lose it. But obviously, the passiveness is something you are not expecting from TSM. But it is like that Elements roster, which we and a lot of other people have been comparing it to with Reckless and Frog. And when you have two passive star carries, it's hard to really get advantages, especially when Greg has disappeared a bit the last couple of weeks. We'll see if Mike Young gets the start in any of the last 2 weeks here, because TSM, even though they're 6-8, they still can make playoffs. If they go 4-0, they're finishing 10-8 to close out the split. That should be good enough. Last split in spring, you had to go 11-7, but the records aren't quite as good across the board. And you have the likes of Optic and FlyQuest who have taken a lot more wins than last split because they were in the top 5 and remain in the top 5 ahead of TSM, which I expect will even out a bit here in the last couple of weeks. But also, one of the big issues for TSM has been Bjergsen. We're accustomed to, even when the team doesn't look great, he's still performing fantastically, which was the case last split in summer. But if you look at the numbers between spring and summer, spring's on the left there where we finished 3rd in MVP voting. Those are pretty fantastic numbers. Across the board here, wow. Significantly worse in every category, and the CSD at 15 is the one that jumps out to me because, yes, last week Bjergsen was roaming a little bit more, but usually it's the case he just sits in that mid lane and accrues a massive advantage, even let the opposing mid laner roam to other lanes because he's so confident that he'll get a big enough lead that he'll be able to carry, but that has not been the case here in 2018. Again, you can put a little bit of it on what's going on in the meta, but he only has 1 win this split on a ranged champion. That was Zoe last week against Golden Guardians. Other than that, his wins are on the likes of Darius, Talon, or what was the other one? Irelia. Those are where all the other wins for TSM have come, which is a little surprising considering control mages and assassins have usually been this guy's bread and butter. So TSM needs Bjergsen to be playing a whole lot better if they want to make playoffs. But TSM versus CLG part 51 gets going this weekend, and both of them are desperate for a win. Coming up after the break, we got a top 5 countdown. We're looking at the best base races of all time.